excited to
Let
meet with
me
you next
start.
week. Great. Okay.
Recording.
We've got a
Okay,
couple minutes.
yeah, let's wait for a couple of minutes. Alli, you're gonna take the floor, and hi Gus. So, but anyway, I think you're gonna take the floor. I'll probably just do a quick logistics to set the stage, and then I'll pass the floor to you. Sounds good?
Perfect. And Alice, will you make me a co-host so I can share my slides?
Yes, exactly. I
Great.
was gonna say
Thank
we'll do
you.
that now. Make co-host. Okay, now you're a
Perfect.
co-host.
Great. Great.
Cool. Hi William.
Hello. Come on
Hello.
Hello.
in. Hey, welcome.
Welcome. Did you join as Gus and then just change the name?
I did, and I'm, running undercover, if you will.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. No worries. Okay, let's wait for, all right, oh, I have my note taker. Interesting. Right on time. I realized we're a few minutes earlier.
Mhm.
Alli, how are you doing? You're
I'm doing.
based in Chicago, is it?
I'm San Francisco. Yeah, I'm
Oh my
San
gosh.
Francisco.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. We should meet up in person.
I know. I'm San Francisco and it's a beautiful day here. I don't know, somehow we avoided June gloom. It's been really beautiful here and not so foggy. So, yeah, I'm doing well.
Which part of the city you are?
I live in the Mission. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Not far from me.
Where are you?
I'm in Mission Bay.
Okay, yeah, not far at all. Oh, that's great. I can look this way and I'll wave to you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
That's,
exactly.
probably about a mile away right now. Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So we got quite a few folks joining. It's gonna be a pretty intimate session. So if you could drop in your chat box, just share where you are calling from. That'll be great. As you can see, me and Alli, both of us were from the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
very
always
nice.
love knowing who's here. So, Alice, I think that's great. Let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. If you even want to say your business name, that would be helpful as well. I'm going to have us use the chat throughout today. So, absolutely, we can start testing that now. So, say
Yeah,
hi in the
just
chat.
say hi in the chat. I'm sure, it would be great to share your business, what you're doing. It could be good for marketing. So feel free to do that. So maybe I'll kick it off. Alli, how about that?
Perfect.
Okay, sounds good. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining together with me to learn, I would say, a few tips and best practices from our retail sales expert, Alli. Alli and I, we collaborated before, always a subject matter expert. So I'm honored and very, very excited to have you to talk to the audience live today. I know you have quite a few topics you can, you can share. This one, I would say, in my, in Pockets community, and also given that last week I was actually in New York, I was at the fancy summer
Mm,
fancy food show. Given that, I would say a lot of our podcasts, they are growing, they are talking to retailers, let's say either regional or national. And also some of them, just like me, they're just coming back from the trade show, right? From the summer
yeah.
fancy food show. I think it's perfect timing for us to learn a few tips and maybe even behind the scene tricks about how to get into retailer and wholesaler business and how to do great sales there, right? Which is quite different from DTC, as we know. So without further ado, I want to welcome Alli officially. and I want to pass the floor to you. Again, this is an intimate session. Feel free to enter your questions or comments in the chat box. I would say, Alli, I'll let you do this big sharing. I know you have a slide deck. Towards the end of that, we will open up the floor for us to do Q&A and live discussion. Sounds good?
Great. That's perfect. Thank you, Alice. Okay, let me share my screen here. Welcome, welcome, you guys. Thank you for saying hi in the chat. I see some very familiar names in there. Some Retail Ready students, and really great to be here in community. Give me a yes if you can see my screen. You can see my slides, and then we will get going here. We've got lots to talk about. We are primarily talking about what happens once you get on that shelf, right? How do you sell once
Alli,
you are on the shelf? Yeah.
Yeah,
Alice, can you
sorry
see
to
my slides?
interrupt. Yeah, I can see your slide. There is one question. I thought it's a good question. Is this more food focused or it cover broader sectors?
Yeah, so inside of Retail Ready, we work with food, beverage, and taxable grocery. So pet, supplements, hair and body products, cleaning products, textiles like aprons and coffee filters and things like that. So I always like to say, Alice, this is applicable for any brand who has to convince a wholesale buyer, has to convince someone else to put your product on their menu, on their shelves, on their e-commerce site, in their mini bars, anything like that. It's all wholesale. And what we're talking about today is going to work regardless of what category you're in. Great question. Thank you, Alice.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Okay. You guys ready? Here we go. It's not them. It's on you. So I'm going to kick off today with some tough love, and it's this. You are the person responsible for getting your product off those retail shelves, off the menu, out of the mini bar, off the e-commerce site, and into shoppers' baskets, right? You are the person who is responsible for increasing velocity, for hitting your sales goals, and for succeeding in your wholesale accounts. You're responsible for the reorders. So I want to be clear here that it's not the account's responsibility to sell your product. It's not the category manager's responsibility to ensure that you are a fast-moving product line. It's not the stockers or the servers or the merchandisers who are touching your product. And get this, it's not even your broker or distributor, right, who has likely promised you the world. It is on you. So when you are stuck in this belief that once you get on the shelf, or once you get that new wholesale account, that it's everybody else's job to sell your product, you are eroding those wholesale relationships. You are letting your sales stagnate, and you are getting on that path to being discontinued. And no one wants that, right? You have worked so hard to get your product in those accounts, and we've got to do the next step there. So usually, I'll say this, brands don't like this when I come and start my webinars this way. I often get a lot of big sighs on the other side of the screen. But that's why we're here today, to tell you some tough love about your role as a business owner and to get you in the position where your product is actually selling once you land those new wholesale accounts. All right. So give me a yes. I always like to ask permission here. Give me a yes in the chat if you are down for the tough love today. I'm going to give a fair amount of it, but I always want to make sure that that's welcome here. I've got a lot of tough love to give. So just give me a yep. Okay, I'm getting yep, yes, yes, yes. Okay, yes, yes. And I'll just say a couple people are DMing me directly, which is totally fine. Just know that I'm the only one who can see that in the chat if you are sending a message directly to me, which is welcome, right? If you've got something to say that's a little bit more private or you want to keep it anonymous, just DM me directly. Okay, so who am I to come in here and tell you that you might be the problem in your sales, with your sales? As Alice said, I'm Alli. I am a former grocery buyer, former head of grocery at Buy Right Market in San Francisco, turned wholesale consultant. I am the creator of Retail Ready, an online course and strategic support and community that I've run for the past 8 years. Inside of Retail Ready, we've helped over 3,000 brands with wholesale strategy. So this is a topic that I talk about all day, every day with food, beverage, and taxable grocery brands. I'm also the host of the Food Biz Wiz podcast. We just celebrated our 250th episode, and I'll tell you more about how you can listen to that, how we can stay in touch at the end of today. So I left Buy Right 10 years ago and started my consulting business, coaching brands on wholesale strategy. And at Buy Right, I would see time and time again that really great product, really delicious product failed on our retail shelves or never made it to the retail shelf in the first place because brands simply weren't ready for wholesale. I was determined to peel back the curtain and share that insider knowledge with emerging brands, which is why I launched Retail Ready in 2016. So all that being said, right, I've heard, I don't know, maybe at this point, thousands of buyer pitches, had tens of thousands of samples left for me. And I see this, I've seen over and over again, brands using all of your energy, your time, your money, your willpower, your creativity, just to get those new wholesale accounts. But then you've got very little left resource-wise or financially, right, to get off the shelf and into those shoppers' baskets. So that is what we are focusing on today. We are breaking that cycle today. Tell me if that sounds familiar, right? That you spend all this energy just to land that account. And at that point, you're tired. You're like, well, that took so many resources. I've got very little left to keep, to nurture those accounts once they're there. I'm getting, yes, yep, okay, great. So I've got 3 steps to sell off the shelf to share with you today. And we're going to talk through the key things that you can put in place to become a high mover in your category. I'm going to share the steps and then we'll go into detail on each one. But before we do, let me just review a couple logistics on how it's going to go down today. While I'm sharing these steps, you might have questions, and that is great. I love a back and forth conversation rather than just my lecturing at you for an hour. So please put your questions in the chat as we go. And then I hope we'll have some time at the end for additional open Q&A. And then speaking of engagement, this training is not the place for you to just sit back and listen as you drive between accounts or do the dishes or walk your dog and then leave, not really having absorbed anything, right? Truthfully, that is a waste of your time. So instead, this training is for you to get you to take a step forward with your sales strategy today. It's one thing to think about your strategy, and it's a whole other thing to put action into place. So throughout today's training, I'm going to ask you to do some work. I'm going to ask you to answer questions and brainstorm actions that you will take. So I'm going to ask you to comment in the chat and respond to our prompts today. This is how you put change in place in your business. Sound good? Okay, so let's test it right now with a prompt in the chat. I'm going to ask a question and then I want you to put your number in the chat, okay? On a scale of 1 to 4, I want to know right now, how confident are you in selling off the shelf, selling off the menu, selling off the mini bar, right? Selling in your accounts once you land that new placement. 1 is help me, Alli. Like I've got no strategy. I'm winging it every time. Like that's why I'm here, right? And 4 is like, move over, Alli, hand me the mic. I'm a total category leader, right? So there's no judgment on these numbers, but I just want to get a sense of where we are today. On a scale of 1 to 4, how confident are you in selling off the shelf once you land that new account? 2s, 1, someone DM me 0. Yeah, great. Everybody starts at 0. That's perfect. 2s, a 3, great. Okay, awesome. We are in the right place. It looks like we're in the right place with these numbers. So let's review these 3 steps and then we'll dive into the details of each one. Step number 1, the 3 steps to selling off the shelf here. And again, I keep saying shelf, but no, whenever I say shelf, again, it can be shelf, it can be menu, it can be airline mini bar. It can be a golf course, like refreshment stand, right? It doesn't matter. Any wholesale account works in this place. I'm just going to say shelf for ease. Okay, so step number 1 is shift your thinking. Step number 2 is the coordinated kickoff. And step number 3 is constant, gentle pressure. Okay, let's dive in with step number 1. Shift your thinking. We already kicked off today with my tough love that it's your responsibility to drive sales once you're on the shelf. And I want to dive a little bit deeper here. So remember, when you are stuck in this belief that once you get that new account, it's everybody else's job to sell your product, again, you're eroding those relationships. Your sales start to decline, and you are on that path to getting discontinued. So what does it look like when you are stuck in this belief? You are a brand that doesn't have a well thought out marketing strategy that you execute with every new account. You might be a brand who has no budget for promotions. You may never prioritize staff education. You never say yes to doing strategic demos. You haven't thought about how you're going to drive trial on the shelf. You don't have a system that you use consistently for following up on accounts and ensuring that they're reordering. And if this is you, if you're like, oh shoot, like Alli must be watching me in my business right now. Again, the tough love, you're just doing half of your job here. Now, again, you don't have to do all of those things with every single account, but you have to do some of those things. And most importantly, you have to have a plan. So let me know in the chat if you feel a little called out right now. You're like, oh shoot, that might be me. Like I might not be doing all those things, or I'm just kind of winging it when it comes to sales here. So this is the first step in shifting your thinking, taking full responsibility for your sales success, even if you have an internal or external sales team, even if you're paying that broker fee every month, even if you're using a distributor, it's on you. So let me show you a diagram of unhelpful founder thinking. I see food founders and sales managers stuck in this negative belief cycle, and I really want to look at it here. So here's this negative loop, and we're going to start at the top here. I'm seeing this a lot, especially with ups and downs of the economy over the past couple of years. So at the top here, I see founders stuck in this belief. My audience isn't interested in expensive products right now. Have you ever felt that way? And you're like, yeah, that might be kind of true, right? So you think that if you're stuck in that belief, naturally what follows, again, moving down to the right here of our triangle is, well, since they're not interested, it's just a waste of my time to do marketing, right? If they're not interested, why am I marketing to them in the first place? And then what happens when you have that belief? Obviously, we move over to the left-hand side of the triangle there. Since it's a waste of time, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna stop doing my sales and marketing efforts. And then sure enough, what happens, right? What happens when you stop trying? Your sales slow down, right? So are you stuck in this thought error here? I want to say there is no shame if you have questioned some of this. If you're like, oh yeah, Alli, I've kind of thought this, right? Our news, our media, people, community are telling us this. So let me know in the chat if you've wondered about this over the past couple months or the past couple years. And so many brands are stuck thinking, well, people are watching their wallets, so they don't want my expensive product. It's a waste of time for me to do marketing. Or maybe there's a little bit of like, who am I to be selling during this time? So you back off on your marketing efforts. And sure enough, your sales slowed down. You prove this thought at the top, right? My audience isn't interested in expensive products right now. You prove that thought correct. Yeah, it makes sense. I do worry about the price of our products compared to our competition. Yeah. There's a wonderful quote by Seth Godin, and he says, if price is the only thing your customers care about, I'm paraphrasing. If Price is the only thing you have given your customers to care about, or if price is the only thing your customers care about, you haven't given them anything else to care about, right? If it's just price, it's a race to the bottom, and we all know that we can't compete with that. So here's the thing. This is a really unhelpful thought to have, and it's a dangerous cycle to get stuck in. And here's why. When you think that no one wants or can afford or is interested in your products in this economy, or who are you to market your products? I hear this too. Who am I to market my products, Alli, when people are dying all around the world through war, through natural disasters, right? You name it. Well, then you stop doing the follow-ups, the marketing, the promotion, and the actions that lead to sales. And again, you're proving your own scary thought true here. If you don't think people are buying, you stop doing the selling, and therefore you stop making the sales. So step number one here in increasing our sales is shifting your thinking. And here I'm asking you to shift away from thinking, right, that it's the store's first step number one, shifting away from thinking it's the store's responsibility or the broker or the distributor's responsibility to drive sales for you. And then I'm asking you to stop thinking that no one wants or needs your products right now because people are tightening their wallets or that there's too much despair in the world to sell your products. So instead, here's what I want you to think about those retail relationships. At the end of the day, we all have the same goals. This is this new magic phrase that I want you to bring in with you. So let's practice it, right? Solidify this thought with me here today. Say it with me in the chat. We all have the same goals. Okay. Heck yes. Yeah, we do, right? Heck yes, that shopper wants your delicious chocolate bar at the end of the day. I mean, heck yes, they want your gluten-free snack bars that are safe for their kid who has celiac to eat, right? Heck yes, that wholesale buyer wants to sell more product. Your distributor wants to move more cases. Your broker wants to see the reorders. We all have the same goals. The faster that you can recognize this, that we're all working together for the same end results, the faster you are able to see this as a partnership where everyone works together to achieve the goal of higher sales. So the sooner you stop seeing that wholesale buyer as the gatekeeper to your success, or someone that you just have to wrangle, or someone who doesn't actually care about your brand, the faster you are able to shift your thinking and show up as a smart, respectful, collaborative brand that I know you are, which leads to getting on more shelves and getting in more homes once you're there. So with this new thinking, I want you to see your wholesale relationships as just that. They're relationships. Relationships that are based off mutual trust, respect, and understanding, the recognition that we all want to succeed here. And once you recognize that, you're ready for step number two. So without shifting your thinking, it's always going to be this me versus them attitude with those wholesale buyers, right? And marketing efforts are going to naturally feel frustrating to execute, which means you're bound to be resentful, confused, or feel like you're just spinning your wheels. And again, no one wants that. So let me know in the chat here if you've felt some of that, right? Where you're like, I'm beginning to feel a little frustrated. I'm beginning to feel like it's me versus them with my wholesale buyers. I'm beginning to feel resentful. They're not giving me the time of day. Yep, great. Yes. Okay. So let's move on to step number two. And again, we've got to shift our thinking here because unless we take this important step number one, step number two and step number three aren't going to work. You're not going to do them unless you shift your thinking. Okay, so step number two, the coordinated kickoff. And now I know we are here to talk about selling off the shelf once you're there, but we can't talk about selling through without talking about the kickoff when you land a new account. So your ability to have a high selling product with sustained success has everything to do with how you launch into a new account. Success does not just randomly happen. it's planned for, and it's executed. Winging it is not the way to run a business. I mean, I've tried that in the past. Winging it does not get you very far. I've never, ever seen a product have high sales without a solid marketing plan in place. So how do we execute the coordinated kickoff in a new account? We do everything in our control. Again, we're using this mindset that we are responsible for our sales. We do everything in our control to get the store, the shoppers, and the staff fired up about our products. So I invite you, I challenge you to create your own coordinated kickoff so that you stop winging it with every new account and that you have this coordinated launch, your coordinated kickoff with a new account that works, right? And why do we do this? We do this because you are too busy to remember all the moving parts of launching into a new retailer. And inevitably, we drop the ball somewhere. So we want a system that we can follow over and over again, ensuring that we get those reorders consistently. We want to land a new account, open up your coordinated kickoff, and follow the steps for your proven system. Inside of Retail Ready, we preach that the coordinated kickoff lasts about 30 days, about a month here. So you go all in with your launch, knowing that then we'll get to step number 3, that constant gentle pressure after that. So inside of Retail Ready, we have a tool that we use for the coordinated kickoff, and it's called our reorder checklist. We use this both for activating new accounts and for getting our existing accounts to reorder regularly. So I want to take a step together today, moving you forward to creating your own reorder checklist that you'll then use again in those new and existing wholesale accounts. So I'm going to be honest with you and tell you that you aren't going to write out your complete reorder checklist alongside me here today in the next 5 minutes, right? That is something that I want you to put time and strategy into and customize for your own brand. So what is going to go on that reorder checklist? Now, again, I told you at the beginning of this that we were going to do some work today, and we're going to start into it now. We're going to use the chat for this too. So together, we are going to brainstorm action items that use this insight of knowing that we've got 3 key areas that we want to engage to drive sales in our new accounts. Again, it's the store, the shoppers, and the staff. How can we get each of these 3 audiences excited about our product line? I'm happy to throw some ideas out there, but I, again, also want this to be collaborative. So again, this is where I'm going to turn it back to you and invite you to do some brainstorm and jot down anything that comes to mind in these 3 categories. I'll walk you through them, right? The store, the shoppers, and the staff. So if we look through this, right? Just admitting one more folk. Okay. How can you, when you launch into a new retailer in the first 30 days, how can you get the store excited? Again, we look at this through the lens of how can I be a great partner for this store? How can I kick off this new wholesale relationship to drive sales? So again, here's where I turn it back to you. Let me know in the chat. There are no wrong answers here, right? What works for one brand might not work for another or vice versa. And I'd love to know, before I just give you a bunch of ideas, tell me what's something that you do or want to try in new accounts that you land. What can you do to encourage sales in the first 30 days of being there, specifically around the store? I'll wait. Great. Aurora says a special discount code for store employees. Yeah, I'm going to put that down in the staff category, which we'll come back to. Yep, great. Demos and free samples. Sure. Great. Drew. Shelf talkers. Yeah, absolutely. Demos, giving the staff free bars to try. Great. Chantrell says training digitally or in person. Yeah, great. Caitlin says drop off samples and introduce yourself in person. Yeah, if you're local, sure. Makes us provide shelf talkers, give a first order discount. Yeah, you know I love that opening order strategy, the discount strategy. So what else can you do at the store level? Some things that come to mind for me, partner with their marketing department, right? How are you providing digital assets, digital or physical assets that the marketing department can use? Maybe you are talking about each new account on your best social channel, tagging them, and then they're resharing it. Maybe you're giving them digital recipe cards. Maybe you're giving them shelf talkers. Maybe you're writing a blog post about your cranberry relish the week before Thanksgiving on their blog. Maybe you're writing a blurb for their newsletter. Maybe you're giving them photographs, right? Like maybe you are partnering again with that marketing department to drive excitement in the store. Maybe you are running. Yeah, Caitlin says, what's a shelf talker? I'm like, shoot, do I have one close by? Caitlin, a shelf talker? Not all accounts want these. This is definitely more of a specialty thing, but a shelf talker is literally that piece of paper that's about the size of an index card that goes under your product on the shelf. That's like the best cold brew, like Alli's cold brew, the best we've ever tried, like female founded and, and local, whatever that is. Oh yeah, okay, Drew's got one that she's showing here. Yeah, resist. And Drew, I love this because yours is literally like on the wobbler, right? So it provides this like nice little movement as people walk by, and you can see where Drew had it. So the wobblers like this, you get it printed, and then that other piece literally goes into the plastic rail on a Metro shelf. Exactly. Beautiful job being our model, Drew. The Vanna, exactly. I appreciate that. Great. Caitlin says, got it. Thank you. Awesome. Great, right? So maybe you're providing shelf talkers for every new account. I used to love it at Buy-Right when people would give us the physical printed copies, right? Like Drew was showing. The physical the physical shelf talkers on the first order and a couple backup ones because inevitably they go missing. And then also if you have one that isn't a wobbler and it's just like on cardstock, I loved the PDF assets as well. And then I could reprint them and laminate them in-house as needed when things went missing. Okay, what else can you do? You can run geo-targeted ads to that zip code, driving traffic to the store. Maybe you are, again, emailing your segmented email list. I had one retail ready student who they were running a 20% off promo for their direct to consumer sales. And they were like, oh, shoot, like if we're doing this online, we should just drive trial to in our stores as well. They coordinated their 20% discount with Whole Foods, and they took their online audience because they were primarily D2C brand, took their online audience, sorted it by zip code, and we sent targeted emails giving them, an extra discount in store. Right? Okay, great. So you guys have it with a store. And again, that we're thinking about the first 30 days here. How can we really kick things off in a new account? And then how do you fire up the shoppers, right? You guys already brainstormed some of these things here in the chat, but what else comes to mind? How the heck am I going to get these shoppers excited about my product line? Because I already said, Meg said, a first order discount, right? Let's run a promo. There's no better way to drive trial on the shelf than to put something on sale. I've got thoughts on what sort of sale works best at the beginning versus if you've been in an account for longer, depending what the goals are, but running a promo, a discount at the beginning can be really powerful. Again, a few of you said doing strategic demos. I've got lots of thoughts on demos, but, in my opinion, the return on investment of demos, wanes over time, but in that first 30 days, they're great. I want you to connect with these shoppers online and offline, right? Email, social media, stay top of mind with them. Get to know those shoppers. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the chat if there's something else where you're like, Alli, I think this is a shopper thing. We love digital couponing, things, partnering with Instacart and things like that, making sure that, again, wherever that shopper is shopping, online or in person, if they're doing click and collect, whatever it is, they are learning about your new brand, right? Meg says, how do you get shoppers in store to follow you? I've got some ideas. Meg, what are your ideas? Like if you're doing a demo, like, let's do a giveaway. Follow me, follow me online. Here's my handle. I've got a little QR code that links to I'm making this up. I've got a little QR code right here on the table. If you follow me, we're doing a giveaway from tomorrow. And I don't know, for our followers, we're giving away a free trio of our top selling butter flavors, right? That can happen at a demo. Again, it can happen on your shelf talker. Usually we see, again, it can happen through geo-targeted ads, right? Where they're already online, right? And that connection between store and your social media has to be, you have to ask for that connection. You can't just hope that someone's gonna be like, beautiful, that's like a lovely butter brand. Why don't I start following them on Instagram, right? There has to be a reason. So we've got to make the ask. And usually that happens in person. You have the demo, shelf talker, digital assets again, right? Like, let's say you are highlighting a prime rib butter pairing around the holidays, and you're talking all about how your compound butters are like perfect with prime rib. Maybe like then that's where you partner with their marketing department, where you're doing the butter giveaway, and it's something about collecting followers. Meg, let me know if that gives you some inspiration of where you're going to go with that. And then lastly, a really, really important one that is often overlooked here is the staff. Why is it important to connect with the staff? I want to know, right? Like, I think there's such an untapped resource for selling your product, right? And again, usually I see this, and it's always so heartbreaking when I see this, when I see brands doing a demo and they ignore the staff, or they're almost like frustrated that the staff is coming up and talking to them and sampling their product, when really you want them to move aside because you want those shoppers at your table, right? And this is a really big mistake. We want to get the staff so excited about our product line that they turn into mini sales advocates for our brand. I can't tell you how many times I've been in retail and, I'm looking at the sea of chips, right? This shelf of chips, for example, and a stocker is literally, stocking this chip section, and I can say like, oh, what's new? What's your favorite? Do you have any salt and vinegar chips? And they're like, oh yeah, these ones. We just started carrying them. They're so delicious. Oh, this one, I met the lady who makes these chips 2 weeks ago. She's so nice, right? We want to turn those staff into advocates for your brand. So how do we do that? Tell me how you would do that in the chat. What would you do to turn the staff to get the staff excited about your product line? And I'm reaching over here because I'm going to show you something that's in my desk drawer that I didn't prepare ahead of time. Well, you guys put it in the chat. Yep. Great. Yeah. Come to a team meeting. Absolutely. Come to a team meeting and talk to them, educate them. I always like to talk about giving them swag that they will actually use. And that's what I pulled up here. It's probably hard to see this because it's so thin, but this is a box cutter that is like gold in our grocery industry. They're so slim, they just go like directly in your pocket. And I've seen brands customize these with their brands, and then they give them to the stocking team. So if you're a brand that like comes in a box, right, where the stockers have to cut it open all day long, this is literally like gold to grocery stockers. Give them swag that they will actually use. No one wants a sweatshirt. No one wants a lanyard, right? Nobody wants things like that. We want things that we can use. Sharpies, freezer gloves, box cutters. Okay. What are other things that you can do? Oh yeah, here's a good one. Great. Let me just read this. Yeah, okay. Stocking your product on their shelves when you do a delivery. Absolutely. If you're going direct, if you're a direct account and you're local, like stock those products on the shelves for them, right? Pay attention to them when you demo. Give them samples. Make sure they know your story, right? We want to fire up that staff. So when you've got these three systems working together, you've got a happy account who reorders your product, who praises you from the sales floor, who recommends you to their shoppers, and who buys you again and again. So some of you might be asking here, you're like, okay, well, Alli, like, what if I'm already on the shelf and I haven't implemented this, right? And here's where I want to reassure you. It's never too late to go back and re-engage with your retail accounts. You can reconnect and follow these steps with any account at any time. It's never too late to kickstart a relationship and save yourself from being discontinued. And then you're going to benefit from step number 3, right? Are you guys ready for this? What comes next? What's step number 3? Constant, gentle pressure. Again, we know that this is where the sustained work comes in. It's one thing to get on the shelf, and it's a whole other thing to get off the shelf repeatedly and into people's homes and on their tables. And the good news here is that if you have created a comprehensive reorder checklist, your constant gentle pressure isn't going to look all that different than the actions you did when you kicked things off with that new account. But they're going to be less of one big concerted effort and more of that slow burn where you're nurturing relationships, connecting with your customers, and implementing marketing tactics to hit your overall strategy of increased velocity. So you likely remember that I said that that kickoff period was about 30 days, about 1 month or so. Now I view this constant gentle pressure being a quarterly marketing focus. So asking yourself, what can I do this quarter to nurture these accounts? Now, there are 2 important things that I want you to know about this step. And the first one is this. If you have been following me for a while, if you're in Retail Ready, you have heard me say this time and time again. The worst business advice I've ever heard is if you build it, they will come. There is no such thing as set it and forget it in our industry, right? If there were, we would just spend all of our time over here launching products and then laughing our way to the bank. But I don't know about you, but I've never seen a product succeed without a marketing plan to support it. So with that knowledge, I want you to recognize the importance of nurturing these accounts and providing that constant, gentle pressure on your accounts and on your consumers. So you want to stay top of mind with them. You want to be the staff favorite. You want to show up as a committed, loyal partner in these retail relationships. And then the second message that I really want you to hear today, as you think about creating a marketing plan that's rooted in that constant, gentle pressure, it's this. You do you. You do what works for you. I call this good for them, not for me, right? And what do we mean by this? Good for the brand who wants to pay for a billboard in Times Square, but that's not for me. Good for the brand who does want a demo every Saturday morning, but that's not for me. Good for the brand who's really leaning into influencer marketing and running paid ad campaigns, but not for me. Good for the brand who is constantly on sale, but not for me, right? At the end of the day, when we think about designing a marketing strategy that builds trust and repeat sales, we want to design a plan that is realistic and executable by you. So often, I see people make really ambitious marketing plans, right? Maybe you hire a marketing consultant who comes in and helps you make this really ambitious plan. And then what happens? That marketing consultant, the person on your team, like whoever it is, something shifts, and the plan doesn't get executed. It was too ambitious. It was overwhelming to execute. And then what happens? Again, you likely beat yourself up over the fact that you didn't execute it. And then you didn't do the sales and marketing efforts that your brand needs, which results in slow sales, right? So I preach instead, I want a simple, doable plan that you are 98% sure that you can execute over and over quarterly. And then anything beyond that is a bonus, right? Again, how wonderful for that brand that has a huge following on TikTok and seems to be like consistently pumping out hilarious videos over there. But if you don't have the bandwidth, the budget, the skills, or frankly, the desire, then you skip it. So I'm actually curious here. Let me know in the chat, what is one thing that you have permission granted from me? What is one thing that you're just not going to do in your marketing? Again, good for them, not for me. Like, I love that that other brand likes doing that thing, but like, it's not our strength. It's not our desire. We're not going to do it. So what's one thing that you are going to give yourself permission to drop today? Let me see here. This is a good one. Farmers markets. Yeah, our slow farmers market. Yeah, good for that brand who wants to be at the farmers market. If you don't want to be there, don't be there. Absolutely. Great. Okay. So back, let me see if anybody else has something that you've just been waiting to drop. Like, oh, thank God Alli told me I don't actually have to do demos, right? You don't have to do anything. Okay. So back to that question. Yeah, paid ad spend. Yeah, that's a good one too. Digital marketing is really expensive. It requires a skill set. If you don't have that, again, budget, desire, bandwidth, don't do it. Use your resources where they are better spent. Okay, so back to that question. What can I do this quarter, this upcoming quarter, to nurture my accounts? What can I do this coming quarter to connect to the store, to the shoppers, and to the staff? What does this particular account need this season? And again, this is where I put it back on you and tell you that this is the work that needs to be done. It's going to look different for each brand. So before, I often get questions like this here where you're like, well, Alli, but like, how often should I do a promo? And is 20% off enough? I'm going to remind you that you need to do what works for you. I mean, sure, I can tell you that 20% off is enough, but if you only have the budget to do a 15% off promo, that's what you got to do, right? Make it work for you. So I want you to schedule a time to sit down and use this framework of the store, the shopper, the staff, and bullet point out what you can commit to doing quarterly that keeps you top of mind with each of these three groups. It's likely a combination of in-person and online marketing efforts that leads to growing trust and growing sales. So I want you to think about what comes to mind for you. And again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. What are some ways, after you do your 30-day coordinated kickoff, what are some ways that you can continue to drive sales on that quarterly basis? If something comes to mind here, please feel free to share it in the chat. I trust that you guys totally have this, right? The brainstorms that you've already put in here today are right on track. It's now just about creating a system where you are doing it for each and every account quarterly, right? And not just winging it. You can create a baseline with your reorder checklist. And remember, again, you are busy enough. So my advice here to you is to let it be easy. Make a crappy first draft of your reorder checklist and your sales systems. That's a start. And again, when I say system, it can be as easy as a Google Doc that has a checklist in it, and either you or a colleague runs through that checklist every time a new account comes your way. The best systems, like I said, the best systems are the easiest to follow and ones that you know that you can execute 98% of the time. So before we start to wrap up here, here's your invitation, again, to set aside a time to complete your reorder checklist and your quarterly plan. I would love to see you commit to setting aside half hour, 30 minutes, that's it, to bullet point it out. That's all it takes to get moving here. So when are you going to do it? If you feel inclined, tell me in the chat. When do you have 30 minutes in the next week or so that you can make your first good enough draft of your reorder checklist? So we are much, much more likely to do things when we tell others about our goals and our accountability. All right, so let me start to wrap up here. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to recap what we covered. I'm going to tell you how you can stay in touch, and I'm going to answer any lingering questions that you have. So today we talked through these 3 steps. 3 steps to selling off the shelf. The first one was shift your thinking. First, we agreed that it's your responsibility to sell off the shelf. And yes, that news can be frustrating. And yes, we can feel massively annoyed that the stores or our brokers or our distributors won't take full responsibility here. But until we accept this, we'll always be relying on somebody else for our success. You know what the quickest way to success is? It's taking full responsibility for it. I also asked you to shift your thinking around whether or not your audience wants and needs your product right now. Don't get stuck in that cycle of shrinking into the background, dialing back on your sales and marketing efforts, or being too timid to ask your audience for the sale because you're making the assumption, right, that they aren't interested right now. The incorrect assumption. Step number 2 was the coordinated kickoff. Here we realized that the first 30 days can predict the next 3 years on the shelf. And we have to put a system in place for starting off with a bang and getting momentum from the very beginning. I encourage you to use that framework that we use inside of Retail Ready with the reorder checklist so that you've got a method in place for every new account that you land and a framework for re-engaging with your stagnant accounts right now. And then step number 3, the constant gentle pressure. We realize that relying on that field of dreams advice, right? If you build it, they will come. It's not serving us here. We have to make a quarterly effort to reconnect with those accounts, to test out our marketing tactics, to measure their results, and to rinse and repeat. So which one did you need to hear today? Give me a 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. As I was speaking, which one were you like, oh shoot, like Alli's really seeing me here. This is the one that I need to focus on next. Let me know 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. Which one do you need to go back and focus on? Yeah, 2. And a 1. Yep, great. Another 2, great, good. Yeah, that coordinated kickoff is so powerful. Aurora says all of them. Yeah. Number 2, I mean, they're all very powerful, right? They're all really, really powerful here. Just depending where you are in your business, where you are in the season. And you know, we find inside of Retail Ready, it shifts, right? You might feel really good on 1 and 2 in this season, and you're like, okay, yeah, our intention now is to really drive trial and to like ramp up our velocity. And then you might get to, you know, 6 months from now, you might be like, oh, we've got our coordinated kickoff working well. We're hitting our sales goals. Like things are feeling good, but the doubt is starting to creep in. I'm starting to get a little bit antsy. I'm like, oh, we're like getting into election season and like, I'm getting antsy. Maybe that's just me. And like, we need to shift our thinking again, right? We're like, nobody cares about specialty grocery right now. And that's not true, right? So things, again, it's not like you check off 1, 2, and 3, and then you're good forever and ever. You're going to have cycles of each of these. Okay, so as we end things here, I want to ask you the same question that we ask on every single Retail Ready call. So again, it's one thing to show up to these calls and to listen and to nod along and be like, ah, good point. Like, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to think about that one. And it's a whole other thing to move from thinking into action, right? I don't want this hour to be a waste for you. So what is one thing that you are going to do differently as a result of being here today? What's one thing? Maybe it was an aha moment you had, a light bulb moment. Maybe it was someone else's chat that you're like, oh yeah, that's good. I'm gonna steal that idea. Tell me in the chat, what is one thing that you are going to do differently as a result of being here today? Great. Go to my team meetings. Great. Go back and revisit old accounts and try to strengthen those relationships. Yeah, Caitlin, there's like a blessing and a curse in grocery, particularly over the past few years, where I'm seeing buyers are just like moving positions a lot, very frequently. And the blessing of it is, even if an account has kind of fallen off the radar, an account that you already have landed, or an account maybe that said no a couple months ago, you're often talking to somebody new, a couple months later. And so it's never too late to circle back. Yeah, full permission to do that, Caitlin. That's wonderful. Drew says, I love the giveaways and followers add-on demos. We'll definitely add that to our demo strategy. Yeah, test it, Drew, right? Like, we'll see if it works for you, but I've seen it be really successful. I've seen it also on like freezer clings or door clings where it's like a 30-day giveaway, 30-day challenge or something. Scan this code before July 15th and be entered into our bonus bundle giveaway, things like that. It's a really great way, again, to like connect the store at the store level and your digital marketing, like getting those leads yourself. Okay, awesome, great. So let's see, what else do we have here? Do I have another slide? Yes, I do. Okay. So I also invite you to keep in touch. I'm in touch with so many of you, and there are a few new names on the list here today. So I'm putting my contact info right here on the screen. We've got a mini, I call it like the Cliff Notes version of our reorder checklist available to you. We reserve obviously the full version inside of Retail Ready, but I've got a mini reorder checklist that you can get. Our Basil the bot will DM it to you if you DM us the word reorder to FoodBizBiz on Instagram. And again, I really want you to hear me when I say this, that your success has everything to do with how you show up as a respectful, reliable partner to your wholesale accounts, starting the very first time you pitch. It starts even before you land on the shelf. It starts with you, right? Thank you for having me today. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions that remain. Alice, I just saw your face pop up again. Alice, thank you. Thank you for having me. You've got such a lovely audience here, a great community. And like I said, if you guys have questions too, often what happens is we'll hang up on this webinar and then I'm sure people are like, oh, I've got a question, 10 minutes from now or tomorrow or whatever, right? Send me a note. I'm here, my email's right on the screen, send me a DM. I'm happy to provide resources. Like I said, we've got 250 episodes of the Food Biz Wiz podcast at this point. I'm happy to direct you to an episode or provide other resources. Great. Caitlin, thank you for the praise. Happy to have you here. You're welcome. Great. Aurora. Yeah. Thank you for attending. Alice, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining. Thanks for everyone for joining the session. Yeah, so if I would say, Alli, you have your contact information. I'm sure if needed, please reach out to Alli. This video will be shared in the community through the newsletter. So let's keep in touch. If you want any other webinars, feel free to reach out to me. You know me, Alice. Zhang at MyPocketCFO.com. I hope to have more valuable webinars in the future. Sounds good.
Good.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Alli.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.